Good evening, everyone, and welcome to First Canada Alumni Corner. I am so excited for you all to be here tonight. First Canada Alumni Corner is an informative and exciting series of virtual coffee chat style information sessions and workshops presented by accomplished First Robotics Canada alum. This program is designed to empower current students as well as alumni with the knowledge, skills, and insights they need to succeed in their transition from being team members to being part of the incredible First Robotics Canada Alumni Network and succeed within it. I am your host, Jaylene Kostrzelski, fellow First Canada alum and volunteer and alumni manager here at First Robotics Canada. I'm going to start tonight with a land acknowledgement. As Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are a part of. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also known as North America. The Indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. Thank you. And today our topic is volunteering with First as an alum. We're going to cover topics like why volunteer, event volunteer roles, mentoring as an alum, volunteer health and wellness, and volunteer stories. Throughout the show, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them. Today we have 4 special guests that I'm super excited to have join us today, and they're all fellow First alum. So we are so excited. I'm going to pass it off to Emily to first introduce herself.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a First alum from FRC Teen 2056, and I volunteer in various First roles, mainly as a MC or GA at competitions. Last year I was at the McMaster and Provincials event. I'm also a mechanical engineering and society student at McMaster University, and I'm in my 4th year. Yeah.
Marie?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Marie. And I'm an FRC alum from Team 771. And I have a degree in health science from the University of Waterloo, and I'm currently in my 2nd year of law school at McGill. And I've been volunteering with First for this is coming up on my 9th year. I've been in a bunch of volunteer roles. I've done everything from like field reset to judging to volunteer coordinator and MCGA, which those last 3 are my main roles that I've done over the last couple of years. And yeah, I guess that's it about me.
Awesome. And Connor?
Hello, I am an FRC alum from Team 1360, and before that I did 3 different FLL teams starting from grade 7. I am in my 5th year of chemical engineering at Queen's, having done a professional internship last year, and I do a lot of MC and GA across all different programs. Marie was just making me count how many years I've been a volunteer for. It's been since 2017. I think it makes that my 8th season, but I'm not entirely certain, so I'm going to go with 8 for now.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. And Angela?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela. I go to McMaster and I'm in my final year of mechanical engineering, doing a minor in sustainability. And I just got off internship at MDA Space from Team 4039, which I still mentor. And I've been volunteering in First since September 2015 in roles such as refereeing, event organization, judging for FDC and FLL. And also a couple of us here actually help out with the STEM-a-thon as well, which is also an event. But yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for being here. And I just have some questions. We're going to go through them. And like I said, if anyone live has any questions, we can throw those in the mix as well. So just wanted to start with whoever wants to. Can you share your journey from being a student participant in First Robotics to becoming a volunteer as an alum?
I can start just to keep the order. So I was on in 2056 from 2018 to 2021. And on the team, I did a lot more like technical stuff. I helped with design and assembly and putting the robot together essentially. And I was the pit chief. When the way I got sort of involved in volunteering with First is I joined the First Canada Youth Council. I think the first year it was a council in 2019, 2020 season. And there I got to meet a lot of other people from different first teams, which gave me a lot of connections and such. And then at the end of that year, COVID had hit, which kind of froze the season a bit. But it gave us the chance for First Canada Live to start, which was a really awesome thing where I got to start hosting up First Canada Live, and doing like fun little initiatives we had done through there and through the next year. And with that experience, I kind of got a lot of experience like public speaking and like producing First Canada Live, which kind of helped me get into the emceeing role. Where Karthik sent me an email one day, it's like, "Hey, do you want to MC this year?" And I said, "Absolutely, I'd love to." And ever since, I've just sort of been doing that. But it's a lot of fun. It's for me also. It was a great way to stay involved while also like focusing on school because university is hard and being a full-time mentor, especially in early years, is really hard. Now, thankfully, as I'm in later years, I'm able to mentor as well with my team. But starting off, volunteering is like a great way to balance them both while also staying involved and watching the competitions.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. And one thing I'd like to just reiterate that you said is taking a step back is super important. We've talked about this on some of our other alumni corners. First year university and college is really tough and it's a big transition. And being able to step back from mentoring gives you a chance to learn and grow as an individual and then come back, even if it's just for one day as an FTC or FLL event, maybe a weekend for an FRC event, hang out with your old team and come back and enjoy the community and then see how that goes as you get more comfortable and understand your workload as you navigate the heaviness that comes with university and college and the transition from high school.
I can go next in spirit of keeping the order. I started volunteering when I was in grade 11. I volunteered a bit before that, but not like officially. I just kind of showed up to events and with people to do like field reset and stuff like that because I like was scouting or, you know, they were just low on volunteers that weekend. So I randomly like did pit admin at an event. But I started volunteering in grade 11 because a friend of mine at the time was a huge volunteering person and like kind of forced me into it. It was just kind of like, I'm volunteering at this event, so you're going to volunteer at this event. And I was like, okay, whatever you say. And I signed up to be a volunteer coordinator assistant with Melissa, who is a first senior mentor, who was so fantastic and kind of just let me take the reins for that event. It was the McMaster event. I was a field reset earlier that season, but it was the first time that I kind of had a chance to be like in a big leadership position other than like a high school club where like suddenly all of these adults like answered me and looked to me for like leadership and direction. And I was like, whoa, that's kind of crazy that I get to do this. And I'm like 16, 17 years old at the time. And so I was shoulder tapped at that event by Phil, who was the lead first senior mentor at the time and also used to be the senior volunteer coordinator, and who was like, do you want to help us out at provincial? Like you're kind of good at this job. You're good at telling people what to do. And I was like, well, of course, I grew up with 4 siblings, of course. And so I went on to provincials to do that. And then at provincials, I was shoulder tapped by Karthik to do emceeing and stuff like that. And it just took off from there. And then the more time I spent at first events, the more time I wanted to spend at first events, and the more roles I wanted to experience. So at that point, I started volunteering with other programs, doing things like FTC or judging for FLL. And I've kept it up since then. And I was just saying before we got on this call that like even my parents are like, you're too busy, you need to stop volunteering. And I said, absolutely not. If there's something that I drop, I'll drop my job before I drop this. Like first volunteering is the best time. And it's such a great way to stay involved with first without, because I never mentored a team. Unlike Emily, I started a team, I founded a team, and then promptly left that team when I moved out of the province. And so I never really mentored a team, and that takes an incredible amount of work and effort and just like personal involvement, because when you see students grow, you are obviously like very invested in their success and your team success, especially if it's a team that you used to be on. But volunteering just kind of allows you to stay involved with the first community and to still see your old team progress and see students progress, but from a little bit further back. And then sometimes if you're lucky, you get to work with them as a volunteer later. And it's such a nice way to stay and to give back to the organization. So yeah, I'll stop rambling now.
Thanks so much, Marie.
Wouldn't exactly call that rambling, but I guess in the spirit of the order, I am next. My volunteer journey was kind of a whole thing of right place, right time, and it kind of took off from there. So for background information, like I said, I was FLL, and I actually did FLL until I was in grade 9, because I didn't start until I was in grade 7, and I just wanted that one final season of FLL in grade 9. Had a tremendous season. My team got super recognized at the international level, and it meant that I kind of got some connections along with like the FLL group here in Canada and the scene like that. So I asked to volunteer at my local tournament that I always used to compete at, even before I actually joined my FRC team, which I didn't join until I think October of grade 10. So I was last cutoff, things like that. Wasn't even sure I would do FRC, but I knew I wanted to volunteer. So I volunteered at 3161, the Tronic Titans, their FLL event. And while I was there, Dave Ellis popped by, who at the time was not big head honcho First Canada. He was, FLL program manager, and he sees me game announcing and he goes, "Hey man, like I know you're going to be at provincials because we want to show off your team from last year. Like, would you want to do ambassador fun at East, and then in the morning at West you can do some game announcing, and then ambassador fun in the afternoon?" And I went, "Absolutely." So went to East, worked with Charles Offer for the day on ambassador fun, had a good time there, and then we went to West. I started in the morning and I was doing some game announcing, and at lunch I walked up to Dave and I said, "Hey Dave, I love this so much. Do you mind if I stay on for the afternoon?" And they just let me. They just let me stay on for the afternoon. So I did the whole day when I was just supposed to do the morning. And while I was there, Dave's the guy who was previously in charge of First Canada, Mark Bredner, saw me and was like, "Hey man, do you want to game out some FRC matches?" And I went, "I just joined FRC, but I'm willing to learn." So kind of kept volunteering and volunteering. He put me in touch with Karthik, and then it just kind of took off from there. So I did a lot of events along there. I got involved in FTC as soon as it started. I was the game announcer / MC for the first scrimmage of FTC we had here in Ontario. There was 6 teams. It was a rainy day at Oakville High School. We had to have a Home Depot bucket in the middle of the field because there was water dripping onto the field. And I have that photo, and I look at it every so often to make me smile, because it shows me just truly how far that program's come. So when we hit COVID and when I hit university, I was like, I have to slow down volunteering a little bit. And I think what was a kind of a blessing in disguise of the pandemic was that because things were online, it was easier to keep volunteering and to keep up with the same amount that I had dedicated to before. And now that we're kind of out of that and we're having in-person events again, I've made sure to just take on 1 or 2 events per per program per season. So I just did the FLL event here in Kingston last week. I'm going to do the FLL event the FTC event in Kingston in the new year. I just texted Annika as this meeting started about the FLL provincials, and I'm doing FTC provincials with Marie. So it's just been a whole long journey of that. And I think what's kept me involved is what I always think about when I was like a young FLL kid, wanted to get me started volunteering in the first place, which was like I would be sitting on the field and I'd be have my robot go, and the one that stands out to me the most was in my final year of FLL. All the robots around us stopped on like the 8 tables at provincials, and our robot was still going because we still had stuff to do. And Paul other offer brother, came, sat right next to the table, asked me and my fellow operator the name of our robot, and then just solely announced our robot for the rest of the match. And I went, man, what a cool moment. I want to try to make sure that I can make sure everyone has these cool moments here in First. So that got me volunteering.
That's amazing, Connor. And now that you bring up that story about you at the Waterloo FLL provincials, I was at most of those, and just your voice was so iconic in the room, and it just carried, and it Ambassador of Fun feels like the perfect role for you and Charles to do together too. Just the energy, it's contagious. And Angela.
Yeah, sure. So kind of keeping the theme of being a student, I'm in the middle of Thode McMaster Library now, hoping that there's not a lot of noise and hoping the internet does not crash as I'm helping with this first robotics call. So that's fun volunteering. But yeah, like I said, I've been involved in First since September 2015, and I was really lucky that Makeshift hosts the Stemley Cup Championship, which the first year was my rookie year. So I started with like team ambassador, since we do pre-rookie teams, and that's when I met Phil Hamersky, who is also a part of First Canada. And I remember him encouraging me back then to keep going, not just as a student who was really quiet and really didn't want to talk to people at the time and really didn't know what it meant to be an engineer, but encouraged me to keep going both in the event space and with teams. So I did that every year, and I eventually merged into refereeing when I was in my final year of high school, which I fell absolutely in love with. If you've ever done strategy within First Robotics, when you get into refereeing and the roles, it's so similar. It's very fascinating to get to work with teams in that sense. And then to kind of respond to what was said earlier, I was that person that tried mentoring right out of the gate going into university. And although I will never regret mentoring makeshift since I started at McMaster just down the road from St. Mary, it's hard. It's so hard. And you should take the time to, regardless what program you're in, to really find your friends, find your spot in university. And one of my favorite things is to help out at the McMaster event. And a lot of universities now have their own event. So getting to help out locally, like what Connor was talking about, is really helpful. So that's one tidbit. And then one thing that I've also really enjoyed doing over the last few years is helping judge both FLL and FTC. That's really fun because I didn't do those programs, and it's so rewarding when those kids walk in the room and they present their project and they're looking for you as like the expert to talk to them about their robot or their project they did in the community. And that's a very rewarding thing that I love coming back to every year. So it's been a wild ride, and much like Marie, there's probably some points in time that you should probably just stop and focus on other things. But I always find myself going back because the community is just so amazing. And whether you're helping out for a weekend or longer, people just really take you in and they respect you in your role and they look forward to you contributing to it. So that's like a rough overview of what it's been like.
Awesome. Thank you, all of you. And all of you have such unique stories and roles that you've done. I know you've all landed kind of at a specific role that you continue to do, but I would like to hear some of the other roles that you've done and which you found the most rewarding, maybe a good place to start for those that are looking to get involved right off the bat from their first year as an alum. Where do you think they should start on their journey, and maybe what relevant to what they did on the team, where are some roles that they could find that would be linked to a volunteer role?
Emily, do you want to go first? Or I can
Yeah,
speak to
I know
that.
I can go. Sorry, me and
Go
Connor
for it.
unmuted and then muted at the same time. Sure, yeah. So I think my very first role was queuing at a assembly event, which was a lot of fun. And that was my first like experience volunteering in some aspect of first. And then at competitions, I haven't done a huge amount of other things other than MC and GA specifically, just because when I was on my team, I didn't have a chance to really volunteer during competitions because the role I had was too demanding to like go away for a lot of weekends. But in I volunteer with the STEMathon event that Angela mentioned earlier, and I help run that. And then I do little other things. I I'm not sure personally what the best one to come into. Maybe someone else has a better thought of your first ever role.
Marie, do you want to go now, or do you want me to talk?
Why don't you go? Because I have a spiel.
Okay, all right. Long look spiel from Marie. I'll do a quick little one. I'm sort of like Emily, where I got involved like with one role, and I've been that role ever since. But it is worth noting that there's a couple competitions where I did the same role that was not MCGA for a couple years, and that would be the Ontario Innovation Celebrations for FLL. So it used to be to get to the Global Innovation Awards, which I don't even think happens anymore for FLL. It's like a weird territory. But to get there, Ontario used to have their own competition for FLL. And because that's something that had such a profound impact on me, I was like, I want to be at this competition no matter what. So I would just be a team escort. I would carry teams around for the day. And I did that for 3 years. And each year when we lost a team escort or maybe two, it happens. People like, they sign up and then they're not feeling well and things like that. But each year I actually ended up getting up more and more teams I had to lead around. So the first year I had one team, and the second year I had two teams, and the third year I was running all around the building because I had 3 different teams to show to different places with different schedules at the same time. But I think the best advice I can give is something that honestly I've been given advice for because I'm looking to do more roles as well. And I think the answer is get involved at your like local regional level or off-season events. If you're looking to get involved and you don't want maybe the stress of an on-season competition, literally off seasons are the best thing to happen for you for FRC. And if you want to get involved in like FTC, FLL, there are a bunch of regional and qualifier events that like you can probably find one pretty close to you. And again, those are like they have a homegrown family. They're usually run by like one or two FRC teams. And even if you're not on that team, like you can reach out to somebody and go, hey, I want to get involved. I want to learn how to volunteer. Like help me. And I'm sure they'll be happy to have an extra hand around.
Perfect. I was also going to really emphasize the off-season events because that is such a great way to just like not only get in on the ground floor, but also try a bunch of roles. Because usually because off-season events are a little bit less serious, they don't care if you are like, hey, I've been like field reset for half the day. Can I try queuing? Like, can I switch with someone? And you can usually get to try a bunch of different things. But my advice to get to volunteering is first talk to somebody at an event. If you see someone doing a job, a volunteer doing a job that you think looks cool or that you don't know what it's about or that you're like, maybe I would like to get involved doing this, talk to them. 100% of the volunteers that I've ever worked with are so happy and excited to talk to students about how they can get involved because all of us volunteer because we love it and therefore we love talking about it. So everyone is always so happy to answer questions and to be like to help you out. And you know, most of us, the reason that we got into the roles that we're in now is because we were shoulder tapped by someone. And the way that you're shoulder tapped by someone is by talking to them. The only reason that I was shoulder tapped by Karthik is because he saw me at SWAT Posium, which is an event that I helped run for 3 years. And I gave a workshop for the last 2 years. And he just saw that, you know, while I was terrified of public speaking, I kind of had a knack for it. And he was like, we should give you a microphone. And that's the only reason that I ended up where I was is because he took the time to talk to me. And most of our volunteers, I would even say all, are like really encouraged to do that and to find students and to find like what they're good at, what are their passions, what are their skills, where do they want to go, and to kind of help them along that journey. But talk to someone. The second advice is if you are someone who, if you're looking to grow in a volunteer role, if you see yourself and you're like, I want to volunteer probably for a while, look at where you want to end up and then backtrack those steps. If you want to end up being a field supervisor, be a field resetter for a bit and then be a field supervisor assistant. And then once you express interest again, people will pick you out and say, oh, you want to be like a field supervisor? Okay, we'll assign you to the event to shadow someone. We'll assign you to an event to work behind it. Come to the training, see how it works. Come to field build. Maybe that'll help you out. Same thing with like an FTA assistant. If you want to be an FTA and you want to be, you know, big honcho in the field and getting to make all the calls, be an FTA assistant for a while. The way that people usually get to that is also by starting either as field reset or just volunteering to field build or field takedown at the end of an event. If on the other end of it, you're like me and you're like, you know, I'm not so good with the tools and the robots. We've spent 5 years on an FRC team and never once built a robot. And I'm still here. But there's a space for that as well. Like I did awards for 5 years and outreach. And yes, I touched robots and I know how to use power tools and I did all of that, but that was never my passion. And I got shoulder tapped for a role where I need no technical experience. Volunteer coordinating is not at all about that. And same thing with like, I can think of volunteers like lead queuers who have been around for years and years and years because they love that organizational side of it and being able to keep everyone on track and making the puzzle pieces fit together. And there's something for everyone. So the other advice to that is that like go to an event, visit. You don't need to sign up for an event. You can go, you can watch, talk to a volunteer. And honestly, the best thing to ask, is the volunteer coordinator around? Yes. Always. Yes. We're always there. 100% of the time we are present and we're happy to talk to you. And usually we have a job for you. And there's just so many ways to do it and to just shadow someone. And that's something that First has put so much emphasis on in the last couple of years is finding people to shadow and to just like watch what's happening. What are you doing? What does it mean to be an FTA? What does it mean to be the pit admin supervisor? What are you doing when you're the lead queuer, the FTA, the field supervisor, the referee, the official scorer, like a head like there's so many things to do and something that fits everyone's skill set. So look up at where you want to end up, because when I was 17, I was like, yeah, no one would ever put me in charge of recruiting, training, and telling 200 people where to go for a weekend. And yet here we are. So start from the beginning, like start little, and people, if you have a passion, people will see that and they'll move you forward, but don't be afraid. I'm a big proponent of like, you only get every opportunity that you ask for. So if you want the opportunity, go for it, ask for it. It's there for you, I promise. That's my spiel.
That was great, Marie. And with that, I did want to pull up a couple slides that I made for another presentation just to kind of show some of the different roles and the way that you can kind of navigate. And it does say this, but not all these pathways are the same. There is a lot of movement around, but you can see that just being around the field, for example, will help you. And this is replicated very similarly for FLL, FTC, and FRC, although these pictures were specifically pulled from an FRC document. There's a lot of opportunity to grow when working in the field. Same thing with the pit area. You can be a robot inspector, you can be a lead robot inspector, pit admin. There's a lot of roles that take a lot of different skills, very similar to being on one of our teams, right? If you're an FTC or an FRC team, or even FLL, there's lots of components and there's a role that fits all of those. So you can see that there's a lot of opportunity there. And I also did want to share this. So if you are interested, we are working on a way that you don't just have to be tapped on the shoulder to show that you're interested in one of these roles. So if something on here or any of our roles, really, we have so many different roles. These are some of the lead roles that we have. If one of these interests you in any way for any of our programs, we now have a form. So if you scan that QR code, it will take you to a form and you have the opportunity to fill in a little bit of information about yourself, your experience, your skills, what programs you're interested in doing, and then as well as what roles that you're interested in. And the idea here is that when we collect this, we can reach out to you and find a role that find a place where you can shadow somebody, and then find out if that role is the right fit for you. So we are always looking for people to be in these lead roles. And this is our way of being able to have you be able to reach out to us so that you don't always have to be in the right place at the right time. Because we know there's so many other people that just wish they were in the right place at the right time to be able to make these connections that all of you are sharing. So feel free to fill that out. It's available for anyone and you can share the link if others are interested. And yeah, so thank you so much for that piece. I know a lot of you already touched on this, but what motivated you to stay involved with FIRST as an alum to volunteer? And if you do a mentor, what was the thing that brought you back to mentor? A tough one.
Okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Angela.
Maybe I'll. Okay, sorry. So for me, I was really lucky that I went to university right down the street, but regardless of where you go, I hope you feel like you are able to go to other schools to mentor. It doesn't have to be your previous university. So don't feel like you have to stay at your team. But I found, so when I was in robotics, like I kind of said earlier, I had no idea what engineering was when I started, like absolutely not. I had never touched a power tool. I didn't know what a robot was. I was shoved into it by my friends during my first week in grade 9. And just the transformation that students go through when they are mentored by people that just care and are around and want to inspire you. Even you don't have to go into engineering just to have the confidence because that's what they care about. It's infectious. And Matt Alderson and Matt Cibrietti are my head mentors on 4039. And they had actually gone to McMaster as well. And that was the whole reason why I wanted to come to this university. And I guess it's just this want as an alumni that you all experience at one point in time. That's like, okay, I got this experience. How can I give it to someone else, if not better than what they had? Regardless of if I go into a set field, how can I give them the tools that I was given when I was in high school? So that's why I went into mentoring, and it's really scary at first. Again, if I was to go back in time, I probably would take a break just to allow myself to learn how to not only be in university, but how do you make that transition from being a student on the team to being that mentor figure? Because they're the same, but they're very different at the same time. So definitely take that break and just be yourself as a mentor. When I started mentoring the team, I was worried that when midterms came up or exams or whatever, that like I I wouldn't have enough time, and that the times that I would show up, whether it be once a week or multiple times a week, if I couldn't do the same as the other mentors, then that wasn't worth it. But there's been plenty of students that I've been able to connect with, whether I'm there once a week or multiple times, just because they see a mentor that, for example, looks like them, and or that they can relate to, and that changes perspective for them. So there's a lot of young girls on makeshift, for example, that they tend to tap the female mentors on the shoulders like myself, and they're like, so what days are you coming around? I'd like to like work with you on this. And even if you're there once a week, they're so excited for you to be there, because they look up to you, and now you're in the role that a lead mentor did for you before. So anything you can give, it's incredibly impactful. Take your time to get to that point. There's no rush. But it's a whole new experience from what you might have seen as a student, and it's really worth it, especially taking some skills that you learn at school. So for me, it's mechanical engineering. I like to teach computer aided design and 3D printing. That's generally my area. Same with like impact for presentations, help give people the confidence that I was given. So yeah, really fun. One of my favorite things. Yeah.
Yeah, Angela, you touched on a really important part there of connecting with like high school students. Being able to connect with someone that's closer in age to them can be so impactful on their journey. The experience level of some of our mentors that are more experienced or a little bit older have years and decades worth of experience in the field. They're providing such a big value to the team, but there's also such an importance in that connection, that one-on-one, that more of that personal connection, even for some of our students. And I know that I've heard that from students, and even in my own experience, those are the connections that carry on. The other ones do as well, but there's a different level of personal connection with those that are a little bit closer. It's kind of the same thing of like when you're teaching a peer-to-peer teaching versus your teacher or your professor, sometimes that's a little bit more effective, just because we speak in very similar language or understanding or references. So that can be very, very valuable in a student's experience. Thanks, Angela, for sharing that.
I can go next. So from being on the youth council, I loved being part of First, and the people that like I surrounded myself with in First, all the cool connections I get to meet. For those who don't know, the youth council is a super awesome opportunity where you meet people from teams that are all across Canada, from FTC, FRC. And it's just a really cool experience to talk to those people and like know people from outside of your team, because you don't always get that opportunity to work with people like that. And I think that's kind of what's motivated me to stay with First. And I also just I love volunteering. I love doing it. It keeps me with the team, or it keeps me with the program. In terms of coming back and mentoring, I didn't actually come back to like fully mentor till last year, which is my third year back. And that's just because the school's hard, and it's hard to focus and find the balance. My school is not down the street like Angela's is. Mine's like about a half-hour drive as well, so it's a bit more effort to get back there. And I think the reason I've gone back is, well, one of the main reasons I ended up going back last year is one of our lead mentors took a step back a little bit. So a lot of the younger mentors stepped up and tried to fill some of those roles, which made a really interesting change to our team, which was awesome. And I also have a lot of really good friends that are mentoring still, and a lot of people I was on the team with that are mentoring, which is just a cool experience. But also just being able to like inspire students that are still on the team now. It's a lot of fun, and like to just sort of like yeah, inspire kids, teach them. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy inspiring like future generations and talking to them. And when I was on a team, I did a lot of outreach, and my team isn't really known that much for outreach and such. So being able to go back as well and like tell them about that and try to encourage new students now to get back into that is also a really cool experience, for sure. And it's just a lot of fun. Like I highly suggest anyone to get involved in volunteering at least, because you just meet such cool people. It's really awesome to inspire students and such, but like just for yourself, just like you get to meet some of your best friends, and it's just a cool experience, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, Emily, the importance of alum coming back to mentor is also part of the sustainability of the program.
Mhm.
we all know that we as alum or as students of the program really get what we got out of it. And when we can give that back to them, it elevates the experience. It's hard, well, we all know this, it's hard to explain to somebody new what First is and what the community is and what we're all about if they aren't part of the organization, if they're not at an event, for example. And as alum, we know what it's like. We know the energy. We know how contagious it is. We know how much it feels like we have to be there. We have to be at every event and that energy. So you're so correct. When some of our mentors do step down as they age or different priorities come up, it's important that our alum are there to support those teams and keep them going competing at high levels and with their gracious professionalism as well. Marie or Connor, anything else to add for motivation to continue to volunteer? Doesn't have to be specific with mentoring either.
I was gonna say, if it's not specific with mentoring, I technically, I've been trying to be around for a team, specifically the Waffles, here in Kingston. But I am the example of I've gotten so involved in school things that I just find myself without the time to make the 20-minute bus trip down to where I have to be in order to help them out as much. But if you're looking at like why I continue to come back and keep volunteering, I was really thinking about like what it is, and it's when I first joined like FLL way back many years ago, I could have joined a lot earlier than I was. I was presented an opportunity in grade 6, and I was like, I don't think I'll be helpful for a team. Like I do not think I will be able to do this. I don't think I'll be of any value. And then I kind of came around on it in grade 7. That's when I joined my first team. And the thing is that I know for a fact that there are students that are like me out there who, they joined their team. They didn't think they'd have any value to it. So one of the big things I try to do at competitions, I try to really ask about things. I try to ask like, hey, what are cool memories you have? What are cool things you have, right? Like this past weekend, I learned the name of one of the FLL kids' robots just because they were like, this is Little Cheese, and they showed me all their attachments. And there was another team that had individual names for all of their attachments. And this is the thing is that we're all going to get something different out of the program. And what I like to do when I volunteer and what keeps me coming back is to try to find those moments and make them special for a team to remember. Because we're all going to have different reasons for returning. We're all going to have different reasons for doing more seasons, for learning more, for getting more involved. And I believe so much in the trajectory of where First can put your life path on and the skills it can give you, that even if the memories are maybe not, sitting in a shop making a robot, and instead they are, oh, on the field we tied this massive team, or the game announcer took the time to come out and ask us about certain things about our team or something like this. If those are the memories that can be made that keep somebody coming back and keeping learning and keeping enjoying the program, then that's what I want to create.
Yeah, those one-on-one connections with a volunteer as a student are ones that stick in your memory for sure, whether it be a game announcer or someone from pit admin or for staff or whoever it might be, referee taking the time to explain a rule or whatever it is and showing that gracious professionalism. Those are the things that stick in all of our minds as alum or as students, and they're going to continue. So being able to keep those experiences going is so special. Thanks, Connor.
Can I add on to something real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
You mentioned the like one-on-one experiences, and it reminded me back when I was in high school. I think one of my like one-on-one experience things that just always comes back. I met Karthik once at this Girls in STEM Olympics event. Maybe Jaylene knows the story. I met him at this event, and it was like this public speaking thing that he judged me for. And then at the FRC season that year, I'd walked past him with one of my lead mentors. He's like, "Oh, hi, Emily." And that was my moment of like, oh my gosh, Karthik knows my name. Oh my gosh. And it was like that forever will be just like my oh my gosh. And then I saw him at another event later, and it just yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah. Remembering people's names, I'm sure we all have a Karthik story, but especially with our MCs and game announcers having that connection with him. But Marie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just want to touch on something. I'm not gonna touch on like why it's so amazing to connect with students, because you guys have already. And if anyone watching, everyone knows that that's the best part of First is the people you meet along the way. I do want to touch on the fact that like there's two things. One, the reason that I keep volunteering is because I left First Ontario, after 6 or 7 years of volunteering, and I was like, I moved to Montreal, and I was like, oh my god, like I don't know anyone here. I don't know if there's First for me to get involved with here. Like I've heard of like Festival d'Ora, but like I didn't really know what the First community was. And I randomly reached out to an email I found online, and I was like, hey, my name is I've been volunteering for a while in Ontario. Like, do you guys have like I have training in a bunch of these roles. You guys have a role for me. I would love to, like, what does your program look like? And I was like so surprised and relieved to find that like the first community is the same everywhere. And so like it's also something that you can go back to anytime. Whether you take time off or whether you move, if you go to BC, to the US, and even abroad now, like there's a first community kind of everywhere. And that's what keeps me volunteering, is that like it never changes. It's always such lovely people doing such lovely things. But the other thing is that, kind of like Connor, um, I am, that I know of these students here, at least the panelists, I'm the only person who doesn't have an engineering degree and doesn't want one. And I also, for a long time, felt like I was like kind of alone in that area, where I was like, I did first, but I didn't build robots, didn't want to go to engineering school, didn't go to engineering school. And I'm now in like I'm in a career that is not even STEM related, which, like, again, if you asked me 6 years ago, I'd have been like, no, I want to be an engineer for sure. And thank God I wasn't, because that wouldn't have been right for me. But that is also so important to me, to like show that, like, just like Connor said, first will serve you no matter where you go in your life. And like that's so, like, I loved health science, still not engineering related. And now I'm in like law school, which I, again, never would have predicted back when I was doing first, and even like a year and a half ago would not have predicted for myself. And like the skills that I learned from first still work for me to this day. Like I just had to do my first like moot pleading like 2 weeks ago. And something that the judge asked me for was like, you are really comfortable speaking like really passionately and, you know, answering questions. Where do you get that from? And I was like, well, when I was 14, I started doing presentations for a robotics competition for something that was called the Chairman's Award. And I was trained by other students to learn how to answer these questions. And then I was pulled into this role where I do public speaking now. And like, that is the only reason that I've gotten to practice and be like as proficient in this as I am. And so it's something that really puts you and follows you along. And again, being able to offer that to another student, and to like, since I've graduated and come back and done these panels, so many people ask, they're like, why the heck are you in law school now? Like, again, like you went through the same thing we did, where everyone kind of is shoveled towards that engineering profession. And it's not like that anymore, which is lovely, because now people are so much more open. But people really, like, they want to know, like, what is the benefit of first? And there's so many, even if you're not going into engineering. So that's what keeps me coming back, because I can answer those questions from a firsthand experience.
Yeah, Marie, to add on to that for myself, I'm also not an engineer, but I started an engineering school and did not finish an engineering school because it wasn't the right fit. So we have a whole episode for Alumni Corner on choosing the right program for yourself, and also transition from high school to university. And we go over a lot of that, but it's correct. It's totally true. There's so many opportunities, and kind of steering back to volunteering. There's so many opportunities that can be reflected with whatever skills that you have and bring in the volunteering world. And you mentioned, as you go and travel and find different places, wherever you end up settling, you can just go onto the dashboard and make your account and volunteer anywhere and filter. We just had an alum that volunteered she was in Australia, working for a couple of years, and volunteered at a couple of the events. And now she's back, and she's going to be our judge at one of our events this year. So we're super happy to have her back. But like, we have alum everywhere. First alum are everywhere. First Canada alum are everywhere, and they're volunteering everywhere. And Marie touched on building those skills with first. And my next question for all of you, is there anything from volunteering that has how has volunteering with first impacted your personal and professional growth? And maybe that's an extra level of growth beyond what you learned as a student volunteering or mentoring, even with your teams.
I can go first because I've prepared interview responses for this. But I think the biggest thing that, like, for my personal growth that I've taken from first, and this is like such a cheesy answer, but it is having confidence in yourself and your skills. Because I was like a little kid when I was 14, and even like at 18, where I was so scared of being in a room where I didn't feel qualified to be in, and being with judges and being with wonderful first volunteers that seemed so much more experienced than me, and like they knew what they were doing, and we're at a robotics competition and I can barely hold a wrench, so I don't know what I'm doing here. And I like first over the years taught me so much that like it's not necessarily about what you know. It's not even about who you know. It's about how you're able to problem solve, how you're able to present yourself, how you're able to adapt and be resilient in those situations where you're challenged. And the better you get at addressing challenges and at facing them and solving those problems, that follows you everywhere you go for life. Being able to like put together like that systems thinking of like, okay, this is the problem in front of me. How do I get from point A to point B? What are my barriers? How do I cross them? Who do I need help from to do this? Can I ask for help? Am I comfortable doing that? Who do I ask help from? Like, these are all things that the more you get comfortable at it, the more it'll serve you for the rest of your life. And coming out of first, I felt so much more confident walking into a university classroom, a professor's office, a job interview, being like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. However, I know that if you give me a shot, I can figure it out. And not everyone gets that experience, but that is something that you get from first that I don't think you realize until somebody asks you. They're like, you know, you're really good at problem solving. Where does that come from? And you're like, first robotics, of course. And that follows you even like through volunteering, because when you're on the other side of the curtain, there's a whole other kind of, you know, problems and logistics and things that need to be figured out. And it just keeps adding and builds you into a person that is more proficient and more ready for university and for a real job and for the real world. And it follows you even in your like personal relationships. And that's just the kind of thinking that you get from first, that like for personal growth, there's nothing like it.
I'm gonna build on kind of what Marie said, specifically about looking at like personal growth, but also like just problem solving. Since coming to university, I mentioned I did a professional internship last year. I ended up in a position where I was overseeing a large team of people who technically weren't under me, but technically I was the boss of my own thing, and they would just show up, and I would have to deal with problems at all hours of the day and every day of the week. But the point of that is that I've found from my experience volunteering at first, like being an MCGA, no matter what level of competition, you're a very public figure, right? People will come to you with problems, people will ask you things, and the answer is you don't always know what the answer to that is. But that kind of adapted how I took my leadership style, because the answer is that if I know the answer, I'm going to help you right away. If I don't know the answer, I know who to find the answer for. That's such a skill you need, and it's one you develop, because even you will never have all the answers, point blank. Like we all know this, it's not going to be the case. But knowing who to go to when you don't have the answer is the next best thing to do. Because if you're like, okay, I have expertise on this, this, and this, I can give you this idea, but it's maybe we can build upon it with this person. Being able to know where you can go and find your ideas and to continue to develop on them and really apply that to your problem solving is something that's so unique to an event where there's so many talented people working together to put it on. Maybe not so much, like obviously many talented people across all levels, but like when you're dealing with like a regional event, right, and you're dealing with like one single team running it as opposed to, you know, the machine that it can become at higher levels, because we've got it down pat to so many degrees. But when you're dealing with those regional levels, you'll find there's, you know, there's more things where it's like, okay, we didn't think about that, we need to do this, this, and this. And it's just something that helps you think on your feet, helps you say, okay, I know where to go to for this, I know who to help you with this. And I think that's such a vital tool that has allowed me to succeed in both my internship last year and just kind of all the stuff I've done for the engineering society in my time here at Queen's.
I can go next. This is a tough question. For me, at least, this seems like a really tough question, and Connor answered that really well. Like I want to steal his answer, but um, but yeah, I think just for me at least, I remember my very first competition emceeing, or I was like a backup MCGA, and I was very like, this was very new. I had never done it before, like first time ever. And I remember it I wasn't the best. It was my first ever time. But since then, it's helped me grow. And I think MCGA has definitely helped my public speaking skills and like confidence in talking, because game announcing, you kind of just sort of you say things on your feet. There's no script. You kind of just like create I think the best advice I was told was to create a story while you're talking. Which I've just always loved that, because the idea of it is like you're sort of just you know what you're going to talk about, but you're just sort of creating a story, no script. And I think that's helped me definitely through my co-ops and such when talking to like explaining my projects, talking to managers and such. Um, I think more of my technical skills I've gained from definitely been from mentoring robotics and like being our robotics team. Because like this past summer, I had done a lot of computer-aided design and SolidWorks stuff that some people at university with me don't have a lot of experience with because they don't use SolidWorks at a lot of universities. But my co-op, I had a lot of experience because I mentor a robotics team. Then that's how we design. I was on the team when we designed with SolidWorks, and that definitely gave me a lot of experience and a good step up over some other applicants just because I had that experience already. So that's a really great way that First has definitely helped me. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I could round us off. So I've found with refereeing, when it comes to comparing it to like when I was on internship this past summer, and also with my satellite team, um, communicating in a way that everybody understands is so incredibly important because everybody's at their own point in their um, career or at their school. So I guess as an example, when I worked at MDA, I always called myself old because I was coming in as like the fifth year engineering student, and there was definitely some second years that were coming in as well. And they'd come up and ask questions and they'd feel like, oh, is this a stupid question? And it'd always be like, no, it's not a stupid question. Let's go through this together. And it's not necessarily like when you're reffing, for example, when a student comes up to you and wants to ask you a question or ask about a rule violation. It could be very easy to be like, well, you violated G204 and your robot should do this next time. But instead, spending time to break it down with them and help them understand why this happened and maybe some of the mechanics behind it, they could do better. You're helping them do better. And when you do that within your teams, you're not only helping yourself to become a better communicator, but you're being that team lead that will help you in the future and bettering the next generation ultimately. I think especially from like a referee role or even a judge, it could be very easy to get very in your box of like, these are my rules and I'm going to stick to these rules. But when you let other people into it and give that education and bring everybody up to your level, that helps to make the general team stronger. So I found taking that from field side to more leadership positions has helped to create stronger teams and also make people feel more confident. So if you ever find yourself in like a referee or a judge or any of those roles where you do hold a little bit of power next to the field, take the opportunity to bring the student in and show them what it's like. And ultimately you might inspire them to be that next leader. So like Matt Glanfield is one of the referees that now is in the States, and he refereed for many years and he mentored makeshift. And I remember when he was drive coaching and refereeing, as human player, I broke a lot of rules sometimes, and he would take me to the side and explain it and bring me down on his level. And I appreciate that so much because that's why I feel okay to step into the referee role, because he didn't like treat me like, oh, you just don't know what you're talking about. He broke it down for me and helped me to see a different perspective. And that ultimately helped my knowledge. So that's a great thing you can take advantage of in that volunteer role, but also you could bring forward to other roles.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. It's also, I feel like that just made your experience as a human player so much better because you understood what was happening, right? So a lot of our volunteer roles have that opportunity to make the student experience so much better. We kind of already touched on that. Maria, question for you very specifically. We had a question from the audience prior to this. I was just wondering about what opportunities there were to volunteer in Montreal. Are there any volunteer opportunities if I only speak English?
There are lots of opportunities to volunteer in Montreal. So Montreal hosts their own FLL, FCC, and FRC competition. So they have 3 events a year, and you absolutely do not have to speak French to volunteer at these events. I really want to emphasize that. Other than if you want to like MC or game announce, you don't have to speak French. Most of the volunteers, in fact, come from the States because they come up with teams that are in the States. So a lot of them only speak English. And Montreal itself, everyone here speaks English. Yes, there are teams at events that are from like kind of further out Quebec that only speak French, but it happens all the time that like you get a team, like our head ref last year didn't speak English, didn't speak French. And he would just be like, I need someone to explain this to a team that speaks French. And I was like, all right, let's go. I speak French, I can do that. But so if you don't speak French, still come volunteer. There's lots of opportunities. They are always looking for people because First is a much smaller community in Quebec and it's a lot newer. So absolutely send an email. I believe if you look up online, Montréal Festival de Robotique, it's all there. But even if you look up like Montreal FRC event, you'll find it.
That's probably better.
Yeah, I was like, wait, I'm in
That's
Quebec.
French.
They're probably not. So yeah, look up Montreal FRC event, you'll find it. If you do come to FDC and FRC, shoot me a message on social media. You can probably also find my email somewhere online. I feel like it's really easy to find. And let me know, because I will be at FDC and FRC Montreal. So I would be happy to be your designated translator if you need one. But absolutely do come and volunteer.
Awesome, Marie. And we're almost at our hour, so I want to thank our panelists so much for sharing their stories and your insights on volunteering as an alum. Thank you all so much. I do want to share, I'll share my screen again real quick with a nice QR code and my email as well. If you do have more questions about volunteering or any alumni things, feel free to shoot me an email. It's very long. That's it. And scan there, it'll bring you to firstroboticscanada.org/volunteer. You can sign up for a newsletter. I send out newsletters on like letting you know about volunteer opportunities, when registration is open, different things like that. So that is definitely a place you want to be. Also, I send, if you do volunteer this year, we will have our volunteer appreciation event. Again, I'm in the works of planning that, hopefully for August again. And we're really excited about bringing that event back. So make sure that you're signed up on our email list so that you get those emails. I do have a couple of quick announcements before we end the night off. Tomorrow, December 5th, is International Volunteer Day. So I do want to thank all of our volunteers so much. We'll be sending out an email just thanking you all and reminding you to please sign up. Although I know some of you are waiting for your assignments, but definitely come volunteer for one of our events. We have so many between FLL, FRC, and FTC programs, provincials, and such. They're all coming up, as well as some off-season event opportunities throughout the summer and such. So keep an eye out. That newsletter is the best place to find all of those things. We do post on social media as well, but one specific email that we'll talk about it. If you do want to, if you are a grade 12 or you are an alum watching this, please feel free to sign up for firstroboticscanada.org/alum, our newsletter as well. Totally different newsletter. I also send it. It looks really pretty. I promise I don't spam you. I send maybe once a month, if that, with updates. We have our alumni celebration coming up at the FRC provincials, and so many other really exciting announcements coming that we are working on right now. If you want to check out other episodes that we've referenced for First Canada Alumni Corner, you can check that out at firstroboticscanada.org/alumni corner. It's also on our YouTube, so you can check that out there. First Canada Live ran last night. It was an excellent episode. That's also on our YouTube channel, so check that out. We had some really awesome mentors pop on and share about how to build a simple FRC robot, so check that out. And my last announcement for tonight, if you are in grade 12, please check out First Canada scholarships. They are now open. firstroboticscanada.org/scholarships. They're all there. Angela is a recipient of the Girls in STEM scholarship. I think the inaugural version of that scholarship. So that was super exciting. But please go apply it. We would love to see your applications. We will be back in the new year with some episodes. We're just lining up some guests and such. So keep an eye out for your emails, and also our social media where you can sign up. It's always the same Zoom link. So if you have it, you can join us. And thank you again to all of our guests, and for those that have joined us live tonight and that are watching this recording. It's so great to have the time here tonight to share so many tips from our alumni community. And with that, we'll sign up and say good night, and thank you everybody for being here. See you next time. Bye.